So guys, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing in terms of blockchain at GSA. Wikipedia says we're the first in the world to apply it for procurement or acquisition. I don't know if that's true, but somebody sent me the note as I was walking in here. A little bit of background, I run GSA IT 70. We are a $15.2 billion acquisition vehicle. So every year, about $15 billion in federal, state, and local expenditure run through our contract vehicle. We typically offer cloud solutions, IT services, software, hardware, anything related to IT. We have a business process to actually award contracts to vendors. It takes about 110 days for a vendor to receive an IT 70 schedule contract. We have a couple thousand customers all over the United States, basically in every state in the union, there's actually work performed on IT 70. So I was working at the Department of Treasury. I was lucky enough to be attached to the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, and I was doing some work on emerging tech with the National Security Council, and she had an interest in blockchain, and we pushed it to make it an emerging tech that should be a strategic focus of the United States. And I started to see some different applications rather than just the financial sector applications. And at some point, GSA called me. They asked me if I had an interest in managing IT 70. I'm a contracting guy by trade, so I went there. And now what I want to do is talk to you a little bit about the last 13 weeks. So we've actually funded, competed, awarded a contract, and fully built a blockchain-based capability in about 13 total weeks for $150,000 that automates 2 of our business processes. So I talked to you, we had a couple stated objectives before we did that. One, we wanted to lessen the burden on industry. So if we're going to do anything, we want to lessen the burden on industry. 2, we wanted to decrease our direct cost of doing business, the work associated with awarding a contract, and we wanted to decrease or have the ability to decrease the other direct cost, and I'm defining them for you, they may be different in your companies, the other direct cost associated with delivering that activity. So all of the fixed infrastructure IT costs that go into servicing my business. So those were kind of our stated goals, right? So what we did, guys, we have about 22 different systems that we interact with when we receive a federal contract that we're going to evaluate. So what we did is we overlaid Hyperledger, which is a blockchain-based protocol. We overlaid Hyperledger on those 22 different systems, and we sucked data as it related to an individual company from all those systems up onto Hyperledger. Well, why did I do that? If I want to get an understanding of how many times Sensio Consulting interacts with me throughout my network, I got to go into each system and I got to total the total up, and I got to add it all together, and I got to make sure that I reconcile the numbers, right? Because each of the systems has a different database assigned to it. Well, with blockchain, what I can do is suck all that data up, and I can have it on one software layer so that anytime I interact with Sensio across my network from that point forward, it's recorded on my Hyperledger. It's an immutable record, and it records every single interaction that I have with Hyperledger. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do. The other thing is when a company comes in, when a new company comes in that we haven't done business with before, we redesigned all our user interfaces so that I can collect data directly from the company rather than having them go through my fixed systems. And I can take that information that they submit and I can put it directly on Hyperledger. Again, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to create an immutable record of all of the data that the company submitted to me. I put it on one data layer so that it doesn't have to be reconciled amongst multiple systems, so that I can run microservices off that data. So if any of you guys are kind of blockchain experts, you probably understand the way it's used for financial transactions. I'm basically taking that flexibility for financial transactions. I'm creating one layer of data, and on that layer of data, I'm creating microservices that mimic my business process and collect pricing information, collect technical information, collect financial information with any company that I do business with. So the entire business process on a distributed ledger technology, completely decentralized. So now me and the company, we have an independent, immutable relationship with one another. Anytime Raj makes a change in his network, it's going to be flagged for me. It's 100% transparent at any time, at any given point throughout the business process. Now, just to talk a little bit about the architecture for any of the IT folks that are in the room. So we did an analysis and decided on Hyperledger. But if you know anything about blockchain, you know that if you put a bunch of clunky data on a chain, it becomes really slow. And I want to do automation, right? And I'm going to get into that in a little bit. So what I started to do is I actually dropped anything that was clunky, any large images, anything that took up a bunch of space, I dropped it into MongoDB. And I put everything in MongoDB on an immutable record as well. Why did I do that? Parallel immutable records, so that I know when it goes to the database and when it comes back up to the chain for analysis, it's unchanged. And if it was changed, I have a record of it, right? I'm creating a level of certainty around the data that I'm collecting from the industry partner. So why am I doing this? I told you our business process takes about 110 days. We have a business process that for certain partners, we have a business process that you can get through in 34 days. I think I can get our business process down to a matter of hours. Now, the stated goal, I'm just telling that with you since we're a bunch of close friends, the stated goal is 9 days. Why? Because I went ahead and I did activity-based costing for every activity in my portfolio. And I realized that if I fully implement this, I'll be able to lower my cost, my direct cost associated with analyzing technical, analyzing pricing, by 89%. That's what I think. It's an estimate. It could be wrong. If it's 60%, it's still pretty good, right? So, and I'll be able to remove all of the need for all of these giant IT systems, the fixed costs associated with them, that just create burden on industry because you have to enter information into those IT systems. I no longer need them. I can collect that data directly from the IRS, and I can collect it directly through my UI, and it's 100% immutable. I have a record. So just the power of that is so important. If you read anything about blockchain in the financial services sector, what they say is if you're Bank of the United States and you send money to Bank of Mexico, you can't just send money direct. You have to have a reconciliation function. They take about 20%, right? A third-party bank that has a relationship with both banks that can say one bank has an account and the other bank actually has the funds that they're trying to transfer. What blockchain does is it creates a trustworthy relationship between those two entities so that it can trade together. And it's so much easier to create it when you know every player in the network and when you establish the business rules for the network. So what did we do? I know that was a lot of mumbo jumbo, and please interrupt if you have any questions. What did we do? So it took me about 6 weeks to convince folks at GSA to give me the money. I tried to get $250,000. I could only wrangle $150,000, and I still thought I could pull it off, right? And then over that 6-week period, I did oral presentations, reviewed the proposals. We awarded a contract. We had specific kill points in the contract. So when I saw the oral presentations, they submitted written presentations as well. But when we did the evaluations and we looked at them, I can kill the contract at that point. If we chose a contractor to do the work, they had about a 4-week period where they could do an analysis of our business process, determine the optimal path, because I want to get rid of anything that's not optimal. And they could make a recommendation on what type of blockchain or distributed ledger technology we were going to use. I thought we were going to use Hyperledger. They came down with a recommendation of Hyperledger. Then from over the next 4 weeks, they went across our optimal path and we worked together and we identified business processes that we wanted to fully automate. I don't want a human being involved in them. And we settled on automating the process for financial analysis. So the second a vendor submits a proposal to us and they submit their financials to us, within 1 second, we fully do an analysis on their financials. Completely transparent between me and the vendor, because we're actually viewing the information on a node. We don't have a system that they enter their information into with a database and a system that I'm looking at with a database. It's a node distributed ledger that actually shares that data with each of us in real time. Completely transparent to one another. If there's a financial analyst that has to look and approve that information, some agencies in the room may have that. We do in certain parts of GSA, in certain parts we don't. They have a view into that as well too, immediately. So we automated that business process leveraging a soft form of artificial intelligence. Pretty simple, right? Second thing we did is we have this process where we develop a pre-negotiation memorandum. It's really laborious. I mean, you got to copy and paste from multiple systems, and you can't get into some systems. And if you miscopy something, you got to go back and start all over again. We use robotics processing automation on top of the chain. Why? Because all the data on the chain's accurate. It's an immutable record. It's the information the company submitted, and any change to that information, we both agreed to. Now I can do robotics processing automation on that, and I know that it's actually done on accurate data. So we set up a robotics processing automation protocol, leveraging an algorithm that actually does all that for you. So the pre-negotiation memorandum is established for the contracting professional to look at. What's the goal of this? I mean, I think we can get award time of mods down to a matter of hours. I mean, it just depends if somebody's at their desk to award it, because I'm not going to take away the legal authority for a contracting officer to actually make that decision. I think I can get the processing for actual new contracts down to less than a day, but we're going to set the goal at 9 days because somebody may be on vacation, or maybe they have some meetings to go to, or maybe they decide they want to negotiate. And I'm going to literally take every part of my optimal business process, and I'm going to use a soft form of artificial intelligence. I'm going to leverage automated machine learning to actually automate each of those business processes. I'm going to automate technical review. I'm going to automate price negotiation memorandum development. I'm going to automate price negotiation memorandum and price analysis. I already told you about financial analysis. And because I'm operating on that chain, I no longer, well, if the policy establishment can be comfortable with it, which, you know, it's going to take some time to getting used to. So, and I'm not picking on them by the way. I just have terrible tone. My wife would tell you that. If the policy establishment's comfortable with it, I'll no longer need any of those systems that are currently embedded in my business process, those giant systems that every federal agency interacts with. I'll just need IRS data and information on my chain. There's maybe one or two other systems that I'll need access to, but I can lower my fixed cost associated with those systems, assuming that I can get, because they're larger and they touch everything across government. So that's our use case. Our goal is to kind of scale it out over the next, I mean, we're going to set aggressive targets. So, you know, in this fiscal year 18, to actually scale it out and to take our entire business process and automate it.